Good morning and welcome to day 19 of 365 Days of Stories with Theo Mayer. I'm continuing the story of Lenka, the fisherman's daughter. And as you might remember, Lenka's father had gone now third time to go see the king. And the king had sent him off with a skillet to repair. It had a hole in it. And Lenka had waved him off and said not to worry and everything would be fine. And so in the morning, when Lenka's father is supposed to be heading back to the king's palace to take the repaired skillet back, Lenka hands him the skillet with the hole still in it. And he's like, oh no, this is not going to do. Lenka, he wants it repaired. Otherwise our lives are going to change and not for the better. And Lenka says, Father, that's fine. What you need to do is this. Hand him the skillet and tell him that once he turns the skillet inside out, I will happily fix it to his desired state. But first, he must turn it inside out. Now, this harkens back to the time when people used to fix holes in socks. To darn a sock, you would turn it inside out and then stitch the hole that was in the sock from the inside out. So this is what she was asking for. And, they even, back in the day when people used to repair socks, they would have a wooden, it actually looked like an egg. And they would use that to put in the heel of the sock. Typically that's where you wear your socks out in order to get the right shape when they would restitch it. Nice to carve it out of a soft piece of wood. All right, so off the fisherman goes, and he gets to the palace, and the king is expecting him and welcomes him in with a big smile, and he sees the skillet and he's like, well, it's not fixed. Yeah, I guess you and your daughter would like to come work for me here in the palace. The fisherman says, no, wait. My daughter, she said that once you turn it inside out, she'll be happy to fix it for you. But that's what needs to happen first. Well, a smile came over the king's face. And you should understand, the king was a young king. Both his parents were gone. His father had lost his life in a battle between marauding, when these marauders came down from the north, and he and the current king went out to meet them, and he ended up losing his life leading the battle. And his wife just couldn't live without him. And within just mere weeks, she passed away as well. And so here was this young king. He had just turned 30, and he was doing a splendid job of ruling the kingdom with great vitality and new ideas, but he was without a wife. And, there were princesses, and he found them often just tedious to be around because they had been brought up in such a prim and proper way. And he really enjoyed being out in nature and just being one with his people and doing things that other kings wouldn't normally do. He liked life and experiencing its full range. He would go out and help the gardeners when they were gardening. He would, you know, go get his hands on saws and planes when the carpenters were working, learn to do wood carving, stone cutting. He was into seeing how it all worked. And he was longing for a wife. And so this whole thing that had been going back and forth, he was testing the waters to see what kind of woman this was. He had some intuition that he was on the right track for something. So at this point, he says to Lenka's father, I'd really like to meet your daughter. She seems so clever, and so I have some conditions. She has to come neither during the day or the night. She needs to come neither riding nor walking. She needs to come neither dressed nor naked. And she needs to come bearing a gift that is no gift at all. Can you remember all that, or should I write that down for you? The fisherman was, no, I got it. And I should tell you, the fisherman was becoming more and more comfortable with the king as days went on, and was kind of unruffled by knowing that he was the king, and was finding him just a sort of pleasant young man. And though he did do his threats, it was all with good intention and light-hearted, fun attitude. And so, fisherman returns, and the date set for Lenka to come was the next 24 hours. He returns, tells Lenka what the deal is. You need to go and meet the king. He wants to meet you, which I told you this would just lead from one thing to another, and here it is. And she says, Father, it's great. How am I supposed to present myself? And he said, well, here's the catch. You need to come neither in the day or the night. Good luck with that. You need to come to the palace, neither riding nor walking. I don't know how you're going to accomplish that either. Neither clothed nor naked. And you're supposed to bring a gift that's no gift at all. Now, good luck. I'm going to go get to work and try to forget about all this. You can see me off in the distance there. I'll be in my boat. Off he goes. Well, Lenka isn't flustered. And she really doesn't prepare anything. She just goes about what she's doing through the day. And she goes to sleep normally at night after having had dinner with her dad. And in the morning, well, it wasn't quite the morning, sort of in the middle of the night, she awakens and she prepares herself, and off she goes toward the palace. Now, she had timed it pretty well. She knew how long it took to get to the palace. And when she arrived at the palace walls and at the gate, it was getting light. But you couldn't really say it was night anymore, and nor could you say it was day. So it was like dusk. Sun had not reached the horizon yet, or at least the earth hadn't turned where you could see the sun. And so here she was, coming through the gates. The guards had been alerted. The doors of the gate swung open, and in she came. Now, she had borrowed a goat from a neighbor. It was just the right height so that she could sort of straddle the goat, and the goat would support some of her weight, but not all of it. And her feet were kind of dragging along the ground at the same time. So this accomplished the neither riding nor walking. Now, she had on an incredibly cool garb. It was nothing but a fishnet, and she had draped it numerous times around her body So here she had a fishnet on, one of her father's. It was a new fishnet, not one that had been used and was smelling of fish, but a new one. And so here she was, and she had something in her hand. The king was waiting because he felt certain that she would be able to accomplish everything that he had asked. And he quickly came down into the courtyard and held out his hand, and Lenka, from out of the folds of the fishnet, gives him her hand, and the two of them walk into the palace. And he says, please, if you don't mind, can I get you some suitable clothing? And she, of course, agreed. And he had some of his servants take her off to what was once the queen's quarters. And there she was dressed in some of his mom's old clothing, which was beautiful. Oh my God. When Lenka came out, she looked like a queen herself. And he was waiting, and he led her up the stairs to this one area, this one big room, and there were some big open windows there. And just as they got there, the sun appeared at the horizon, and Lenka came up to him, and she held out her hand, and she opened her hand up. And there in her hand was a bee, a honeybee. Now, Lenka loved taking care of bees and harvesting honey, and she had brought one of her bees with her. And she hoped, of course, that it would make it home. And bees, when first light comes, are often, if it's a nice day, often ready and available to fly out into the sky and begin their harvesting of nectar from the flowers. And so this bee kind of oriented itself a little bit, walked a little bit in Lenka's hands, or her hand, and then as the sun came streaming in through the window, she sort of reached her hand toward it, and off the bee flew, out the window toward the sun. Well, the king, he was just delighted by what had taken place. He was so excited to meet Lenka, and she was beautiful in every way, from the inside to the outside. And long, streaming, dark hair and glistening greenish blue eyes. And, well, she was just maybe 3 or 4 years younger than the king. She'd been holding out. She hadn't met any man in the town that she felt was really suitable for her as a husband. She was quite a smart cookie, and she just didn't find that the men in town could match her. Well, what happened next? They sat down to breakfast. The conversation was pretty awesome. The two of them just really got into it with each other and found so many common interests. We'll leave them there, the breakfast table. And tomorrow, I'll share with you what happens next. Okay, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining.